Boxing King Media in association with Boxro. It's Saturday afternoon. I've got to thank you first of all, Dom, for your time. Obviously we're here because Kell Brook's announced some important news, and you've made some time for us. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. He's announced his retirement today, and as we sat here, my phone's buzzing away. We've got local news and national news wanting to do Zoom calls and interviews for it, but we're giving it to Box King Media first, the interview.
I appreciate that. I've got to mention the last interview we did. I think I mentioned your meal book at the start of the interview, and the amount of DMs and messages I've had about this meal book, people saying how amazing it is for £4.99 as well. Am I right in saying you've had a lot of people buy it and quiz you about it?
Well, just on the back of that interview, yeah, he got I think about 100 buys that day. So, and people have said, "Well, I've never seen this book before." It's been out nearly 2 years, so yeah, it's done good. And look, it's just a healthy eating plan for everyday use. It's not a diet book; it's just a healthy eating plan. And I think with the lockdown, people got into that unhealthy way of eating, ordering off Uber Eats and all these other, fast food places, delivery to your door. And they kind of lose track of themselves, don't they? And people say to me, you keep yourself in good shape. What's the secret? I said, there's no secret. It's just about eating healthy food, no junk. And, it's obviously got a lot of interest and people are still buying it. So it's all good for me.
For £4.99 you can't go wrong. What I'll do is I'll put a link in the description of this interview. So if anyone wants to buy it, you'll have a direct link to it. Let's get down to it. Kell Brook announced this afternoon that he's retired from boxing, so I've got to ask you, Dom, has he spoken to you? Did you know the news was coming out?
We always had an idea, he asked me several times. He came to the house the other day and said, "What do you think?" I said, "Look, Kell, you're 36, you've had a good career, you've had ups and downs, you've had a lot of injuries, you've come through so many adversities, and you finish off with a great night in Manchester against your arch rival Amir Khan. You're never going to really top that. And, you got really motivated for that fight. Can you do it again?" He said, "I don't know if I can. I don't think there's anybody out there who's going to motivate me enough." He goes, "I've got Conor Benn calling me out and Chris Eubank, but they never really bothered me in the way that Khan did. So, I think I'm going to be done." I said, "Well, that's good. You're 36. And one of his favourite comments is, "We've had a good run, we've earned a bit of dough." And we've had a good run, we've earned some money, he's earned some good money. And luckily, he's finished on his feet, in a good place. And what better way to go out, really? What better way to bow out?
100%. I saw an interview a couple of days ago where I think the Salmons were saying that the talks had died down about the Eubank fight. Do you know how far them talks got to? Like, was money, questioned, or how far did it go?
I just don't think Kell was ever interested in that fight. Obviously Eubank's super middleweight, coming down to maybe middle. It was just never a fight what motivated Kell. I think Kell just had the fire in his belly for the Khan fight. When you think his last fight, his performance against Crawford was, not typical Kell Brook by a long stretch. And I think he just wanted to put himself back in the mix, go out on a high after such a disastrous fight against Crawford. And he did that, and it was interesting to see when they did the press conference afterwards. The place was packed, the arena was packed, and Crawford was looking up at Kell as if he could see him thinking, "I beat these two," in bubble above his head, these two bums, so to speak. And look at the attention they've drawn. In England, 26,000 people filling out the Men Arena, and he must have really seriously thought that Khan was going to win, because I can't see why he would have made the trip. But I saw him looking around in the crowd in the arena, looking around at the crowd and thinking, "This is what I need." And I think afterwards he mentioned he'd like to box in England. He probably would get a good response. But I just don't think anybody motivates Kell now. I think he's been at it a long time, nearly 20 years. He turned pro at 18. And we have a little joke. I think Johnny Nelson did 20 years. I think Johnny retired at 38. And Kell goes, "I might just stretch it out for another 2 years, try and catch up with Johnny." I says, "But listen, Kell," I says, "you're in a good place. You've earned plenty of money. You're fit and healthy. Enjoy yourself now. You're 36. You can do what you want. Your kids are growing up. Spend time with your kids instead of being on training camps and being pressured by wanting to fight people." I says, "You want to go out on a high, because not many people do." So we've had talks over the past, and he said to me, "What do you want me to do?" I says, "I don't want you to do anything. Like I say, we've had a good run. You enjoy yourself now. Don't be bothered about people calling you out. Like I say, you got rid of your nemesis, Khan, and it was a fantastic night. You're never going to match that."
And with regards to Conor Ben, I know Eddie made initial talks, and I think I spoke to you a while ago, and you suggested that Kell needed to get paid 10 million. Was there any response from Matchroom and Eddie Hearn with regards to that 10 million that you put out there?
I think Eddie just laughed, but that's the kind of money that Kell would probably want just to consider it, because he was kind of pricing himself out of the job really. As he said, well, if you really want me to do it, give me that kind of money. I'm not particularly bothered. It's kind of, thrown out there just to put people off. Well, that's just a ridiculous amount. We're not going to even bother with that fight. I think that's why Kell did it really, and I think he did sit down in the afterglow of the fight, of the Khan fight. I think I've got another. While the adrenaline was still running, I've got another fight left in me. But I think when he's gone back to normal life, spent time around his kids, looked at his house and his family and everything, thought, why do I need this for? I enjoy myself now. I'm 36. Like I said, I've gone out on a high. Enjoy life, and it is a bit of a an adjustment. Of course it is. It's an adjustment for everybody. It's an adjustment for him, for the team around him, his nutritionist, me, the kids in the gym. But we look back on that night with great fondness, because it was a tremendous night. It was even a tremendous night for Khan, really, even though he got beat. He made plenty of money. He got a good response, and he played the part. He turned up, and he gave the fight, the fight fans the fight they wanted. It wasn't, the right decision for him in the fight. He didn't win, but he still got credibility. I don't care what people think. He had a great career himself. And the main thing, it's no good looking at the shiny belts on the mantelpiece. Boxing is about putting money in the bank and finishing with all your faculties, and I think Khan's just about managed to do that.
And like you said, you got your fairy tale ending. I just want to speak about Kell. Obviously, we kind of summarise, his retirement. I just want to talk about him actually starting in this gym, and just a bit about his past and how you came to this moment where you got to headline MEN, etc. So what was your first ever memory of Kell walking into this gym? Do you remember what it was like, what he was like? Because I remember he was a chubby kid when he started.
Yeah, he was quite a stocky, chubby kid. Not fat, but solid, kind of chunky for his side. Big mop of curly hair. And a little cheeky face, and he just mesmerised because he used to watch Naz on the TV, and when he saw Naz in the flesh, you could see his eyes light up, and he just did a little bit of footwork, and I always say this over and over again, he could walk the length of the gym and back on his hands, at like 10 years old, and that was Kell's thing, that was his party trick. We'd come in and say, Kell, walk on your hands, and people think fantastic, he'd do backflips, very athletic even then, lots of energy, and I can remember him being 10 years old, looking up from the corner of the ring, Naz sparring. I think I was 30 at the time. And, looking and thinking, where's this kid's journey going to be? His eyes were alight. And he got into the amateurs and had a few fights. The first couple of times he got to the side of the ring, he actually turned back and couldn't box. He was so nervous. But then he picked up, and, at 18, he won the Three Nations. He won various junior titles. And we turned him pro straight away. He was a great amateur career. He didn't have a lot of amateur fights, less than 60, I think. And he boxed in one of the National Association of Boys Clubs finals over in Bridlington. He was in at welterweight, and Khan was in the weight below. And I think it was welterweight, or maybe it was... I think Kell went in at 10 stone. So light welter, and Khan was in the lightweight. They both boxed in the same place, the same night. And, Khan stood out, and obviously Kell did. And you look how their careers progressed from that point. So he turned pro. He had so many fights with us, and then he left, which I think was a mistake. He went with Frank Warren and Dave Colwell training for a few years, and he kind of really was just treading water. He wasn't going anywhere until he won the British title, which was an easy enough fight. And immediately afterwards, he came back to the gym after winning the British title, and his career then skyrocketed. He won the British title, defended it a few times, and it went on and on and on. Stuck with Frank Warren for a few fights, and then Eddie Hearn breezed in. I think Kell was waiting for a fight with Mike Jones with the WBO, and he never materialised. I think that kind of disillusioned him, and he jumped ship with Eddie. And I think his first fight was in Hillsborough Leisure Centre. I think it might have been Lovemore on Dun, I'm not quite sure. It was one or the other.
I'm just going to pause you, Dom, because I'm going to get to all that.
All right, sorry, go on then, yeah.
It's all right, cool. Just a quick one, because I wanted to bring up your dad as well. Your dad's always your dad's always had stories about the kids that come through the gym, and he's always had nicknames for them. Can you share anything that your dad may have said about Kell back in the day, or anything that the fans might find interesting or funny?
Yeah, you know, he trained, obviously, Brendan trained Kell from 10 years old. You know, we had Naz in the gym. I was, at the time, like a junior kind of coach. I was just learning the game as coaching-wise. So I tended to get the young kids coming through. So I was, while Brendan was looking after, you know, Nazim Hamid and Johnny Nelson and Ryan Rhodes, I was kind of keeping the younger kids in check. And then Brendan had come from the side of the ring and he'd take Kell on the pads. And I can always remember him saying to me, he's going to be something special, this kid. You know, he's strong, he picks up things really quickly, he's very athletically built, he's solid, he's got this kind of strength, and he's one of these kids who kind of just keeps going, got a lot of energy. He says, you know, keep an eye on him, keep on top of him, because his mind wanders a little bit. And you know, numerous times we had to drag him away from the corner of the ring because he was just watching Naz. And in his early fights, he was very similar to Naz, a very good switch hitter, you know, changed stance a lot, could hit from any angle. And you see, even in the Corn fight, he switched southpaw. But when he went to Dave Cole, he kind of kept his style more orthodox, probably because Dave wasn't confident training him to switch. So his style, when he came back to me, his style was more orthodox, but he could still box southpaw. So it does make me wonder what would have happened if he'd have stayed with us and developed that style, you know, where he would have gone.
And did your dad have any funny nicknames for Kell?
No, he always used to, you know, he used to say the Kell fella, or it's like he calls Barry, he used to call him the Arab, Barry the Arab. He used to have a little name, so he used to call him the Kell fella. But he knew, he said, you know, I think he's going to be the next one, you know, the next one coming through. We had a kid in between them, between Naz and Kell. It was Daniel Teasdale, who was a very good fighter. You know, he could have been a world champion, but he disappeared. And he was a few years older than Kell, and we used to say to Kell, you know, if you keep training and doing as you're doing, you're going to be as good as Daniel Teasdale. And you know, obviously he surpassed Daniel Teasdale. Daniel Teasdale only had a handful of professional fights with somebody else, but yeah, you know, the Kell fella, that was the name for him.
The Kell fella. So moving on, you mentioned that he signed with Eddie Hearn. Obviously, I remember reading interviews at the time where Frank felt that he got to the point where he couldn't really do much more with Kell. You know, what's your recollection of that period? Because that might have been a bit, you know, hard to take when promoters saying that I can't do anything else with him. I think, don't quote me, but I'm sure I read something where he said, you know, he was difficult to work with, whether it was himself or Kell's dad. You know, what's your recollection of that? Yeah,
you know, Frank's obviously old school. He's been around a lot, and he wants things a certain way, and he wants to go in a certain direction, and that direction is the WBO. And you know, it's difficult to say. Yeah, maybe. I don't think Kell was ever difficult. Maybe the people around him were difficult. And difficult can always mean not doing what the other fellow wants to do, not what Frank wanted to do. So yeah, they parted ways, and they signed up with Eddie, and Eddie was the new kid on the block at the time, and he was coming through, and he kind of pandered to the fighters and kind of gave them what they want, and maybe that's why the relationship worked. They got, you know, Kell's team got more leeway with Eddie. And that's probably what appealed to him.
So you're meeting with Eddie Hearn, you know, what was the plan? So, and I'm guessing Eddie laid out a plan and said, like, this is what I'm going to do for you, Kell. What was the plan?
I always remember Eddie, he boxed at Hillsborough Leisure Centre. You'll have to check the fight for me. I can't remember which one it was, but I'm sure it was Love More and Do. And I remember Kell saying, he goes, this is going to be a fight, and I know I'm going to do the distance, because he'd never been stopped Love More and Do. He was tough. And Kell said afterwards he actually got concussion in that fight. And I remember, because obviously Love More and Do had boxed Junior Witter a few years earlier, and I said, it's going to be a tough fight, this Kell. You're not going to stop this kid, so get that out of your mind straight away. You got to be fit. He'll keep coming. By the time Kell had got him, he still got the power, he still got the boxing ability, but his legs weren't as good as they were for the Junior Witter fight. And Kell, he goes, I learnt a lot in that fight. He goes, he was solid, he was tough. He goes, his head was hard. He goes, I banged both my hands up. He says, it was a good test for me. And you know, I remember Eddie saying afterwards, you know, we'll give him a few fights and we'll get him in a world title fight. And I thought, that's a bit ambitious, Eddie. You don't really know Kell. You know, Kell can be up and down. He can go missing out of the gym. It's not going to be such an easy ride as you think. And I remember he's saying it to me and my brother. Me and my brother just looking at each other and thinking, that's not going to happen. It's not going to be a few fights and in for a world title fight. When you think, I think he signed with Eddie in 2011, and it took till 2014 to get the world title fight. So, you know, ups and downs from that point to getting the world title fight as well. It was no easy task, and you have to give credit to Eddie Hearn for sticking with Kell, believing in him, and obviously us as well sticking with him and keeping him on track, because he always had the ability, but he was very prone to falling off the tracks. And it was a big effort from everybody to keep him on those tracks, and eventually he got what he dreamt of, the world title fight and the win.
That 3 year period, because I remember speaking to you back in the day, and I know there were times where you've had to drag Kell out of situations. Is there any stories you could share? Obviously, now that he's retired, not stuff he may not have been able to say before, anything you could share that's going to not land him in any trouble?
No, but, you know, like we said earlier, when I'm asking you about this camera, you said he can do documentary. Maybe that's one for a documentary, because there's so many things that went off in his career behind the scenes. You think sometimes, how did he manage to get into the ring? So, you know, that's probably a book or a story for another day, not now. But yeah, there's some interesting stories, some funny stories.
Can you share one with us?
Well, what can I think of? Well, I think we bumped into you when we were coming out of New Jersey, didn't we? We'd gone to New Jersey. He boxed in New Jersey on the Cole Frotch undercard, and Kell always boxed in a cricket box. So we got in the changing rooms, and he's got this cricket box on, and one of the inspectors from the New Jersey Commission, whatever, came and he said, "You can't box in that." He went, "Why not?" He goes, "You've got to have a full body protector." And Kell kind of brushed it off. So I said to Terry, he needs a full protector. He goes, "Oh, I'll have a word with him." The fella came back and started kicking off. "Listen, if he doesn't get a full protector and he's not boxing, trust me." So they got into Eddie, and Eddie went, "I can't do anything. You've got to do what the commission says." And just remember, I had to go around the change room asking everybody if they could lend him a protector, and none of these American guys would lend him one. It's almost like looking at me, why would you want to borrow somebody else's protector? And are you going to nick it? Type of thing. And I said, "He hadn't got a protector." And you could see him sweating. We could not get a protector for him anywhere. Eddie was sweating. We've come all this way for the fight. And previously, about an hour before, Kid Gallagher had just rolled up. He'd flown in on himself. And the venue where Kell boxed was linked into where the hotels were. So Barry goes, "I've got my protector." Ran back through the hotel, got his box, and luckily Kell was down to it, and it fit him. And you know, he kind of saved the day. So like I say, he couldn't borrow one for love nor money, and he could see Kell for the first time in life sweating, thinking of, you know, what, on a protector, why can't I wear this? And the fella said to him, "Don't even think about just slipping that on and putting your shorts on, because I'm going to check you before you go in." And it was like kind of welcome to America. It's a different kind of level of strictness over there. So not a funny story, but an interesting one.
Interesting, that one. I've not heard that one before. So that period where obviously it took him a good few years to get that Porter fight, and then after beating Porter, you know, there was a period where he beat a lot of guys for which he didn't really get the credit for, like, you know, Jojo Dan, Bizier, Frankie Gavin. Did you feel that as well? Did you feel that, you know, was the matchmaking not right, or what, you know, was it because of Kell's lifestyle outside the ring that made them fights happen and not bigger fights after Porter?
I think, you know, when Kell boxed Sean Porter in America, in LA, you know, all the top fighters were ringside in Kell's division. There were a lot of fighters there watching him. I think Thurman was there, Danny Garcia was there, and I thought they kind of rubbing their hands, thinking, right, this Brit's going to get spanked here. And when they saw the size of Kell and how he handled Porter, I think genuinely, you know, think they just didn't fancy it. They thought, this guy, Kell Brook, we've heard all these stories about his ups and down performances, his life and death with certain fighters. You know, this is going to be a whitewash for Sean Porter. And I think when they saw the physicality of Kell, the size of him, how he handled Porter, how he negated everything he did, I think they just didn't fancy it. And, you know, Eddie really did struggle to make the matches. They weren't interested in Kell. So Kell just went down his mandatory route, fighting his mandatories, because there was nothing else available. And when you think, you know, the biggest fight, what came to Kell after winning the title, was actually Golovkin at middleweight. And it wasn't for, you know, want of trying to make the matches with the other champions. They just weren't interested. And it wasn't until Kell got beat by Golovkin and got damaged that, you know, obviously enter Errol Spence. And he never really got the best version of Kell Brook. And I honestly do believe that Kell Brook, pre-Golovkin, would have beat Errol Spence, you know, and give him a good fight and beat him. He was, in my mind, he was beating him in that fight before his eye sockets done, which was obviously a result of the Golovkin fight. But I think, you know, Kell just got sick and tired of waiting for the big fights and said, look, I need to be in a big fight. I need to be motivated. Nothing's happening for me. I'm going to take that Golovkin fight. A lot of people say it was a wrong move. Maybe it was. But if Kell Brook wasn't kept active, he would have definitely never, you know, got past it all got to where he needed to be because he was just sat around waiting. So he took the chance, and it was a great fight for 5 rounds, and that's his career.
That Golovkin fight, and obviously a lot of people suggested it at the time, it was a case of the money was the main factor. Would you agree the money was the main factor, and that's the only fight that way he could have potentially got life-changing money at that time in his career?
I don't think it was a main factor. I think Kell just fancied the challenge. That's what it was. I mean, the money was good, but it's never good enough. You're taking a lot of risks, and I think, like I say, I think Kell said in one of his interviews when he announced his retirement that he just wanted to give the fans, what they wanted, and it would be an exciting fight. And it was an exciting fight, and sometimes you like to see where you are in this world in your boxing career. And when you think about the 2 fights, he had one socket damage with Golovkin and one socket damage with Errol Spence. He carried on fighting. He still carried on fighting. Sometimes they are one of those sockets, getting damaged is a career-ending injury, as in one of what was the fighter called? It'll come to me in a minute. Oh, I forget anyway. But yeah, it's ended a lot of people's careers. And like I said, with Kell, he got through, carried on, and still had fights after. But I don't think money was the main motivator, to be honest. I think it's just a challenge.
So his career, when you look back at it, the 5 names that stand out to me are Golovkin, Porter, Spence, Crawford and Khan. Obviously, he won 2 out of them 5 fights. Do you wish there were more names on there? Do you wish that he maybe went to America earlier, maybe did what Amir Khan did, just gamble it and go his own way? Or are you happy the way his career went out? No,
I think that Kell did the best for what he did. I don't think going to America, Khan did his thing. You look at Khan's, tell me Khan's best 5 fights and how many times did he win? So you're a big Khan fan. Khan's best 5 fights.
You put me on the spot. I'm here about Kell, so we've got to speak about Kell for now.
But that's what I'm saying to you. Look, you can't, you get to the stage where the likes of Floyd Mayweather, they get to a point in their career where they can be contract free and then do their own thing and pick and choose the fights that they want. And because they command so much money, they can make the fights. A lot of people said that Mayweather cherry picked, but he had some great fights and fights that you wanted to see. Box Canelo, you can't call him a cherry picker when he's boxing one of the now the pound for pound best. For Kelly's career panned out the way it panned out, just like Khan's did. Boxing's a risk. You can't. It's not like league football or championship football. It's not. You can't. You're not playing this team and that team. It's all over the place. It's where the money is. Promoters have so much interest in their fight. They don't want to match them against anybody else in case they get beat and lose the cash cow. There's so many factors in boxing. Boxers just want to box. Unfortunately, there's machines behind both fighters who've got other interests for whatever reasons. It's such an odd game, boxing. So you can't really fault Kelly. He did what he did. He took the chances where he did. Like I say, he's earned plenty of money. He has. He's a multimillionaire, and there's so many fighters who finish their careers broke. Or a few years after they finished careers broke. Luckily, he's invested in properties. He's got good investments. He's got good business people looking after his money. So he's going to be all right. But there's so many good fighters are ruined, and that's like I said, when all said and done, it's not about looking at the shiny belts on the mantelpiece and how many fights your unbeaten record. It's how much money you've got in the bank. So from that aspect of it all, Kell's done all right.
Yeah, 100%. I think the fact that for Golovkin, Spence and Crawford, 3 of which are avoided fighters in this era, I think that kind of shows that Kell was willing to fight anyone. It's just a shame that he never got to fight Danny Garcia, Thurman. Them guys, I think he they were 50-50 fights. They just would have been good, on his resume. But like you said, the point you made was that he showed that he wasn't afraid to fight anyone.
I think, like you say, it was always going to be an hard fight against Golovkin. I do honestly believe he could have beat Golovkin. People say, what a load of rubbish. But, he did expose Golovkin at times. He was swinging wildly. He knew what to do with Golovkin. He got caught early on what caused the damage. I saw the shot. Spence, was... I remember it wasn't a great camp. He trained well. He was all the way through. And it was an 80% Kell Brook who got in that ring and still gave a good account of himself. And Crawford, I advised him not to take the fight. He wasn't in a great place. He wasn't training well. He'd been out for such a long time. He'd only trained 8 weeks with me, and then he had about 12 weeks of the fight and went off and trained with somebody else. He kind of, shot himself in the foot with that one. So, Golovkin, I'll give him that one. But if he'd have listened for the Spence fight and listened for the Crawford fight, they were fights, especially the Spence fight, that was a fight he would have won. So we could write them, but that's just how boxing is, how it works out. You make mistakes, and like I say, he went and trained with somebody else for the Crawford fight, and it was like a shocking performance. You'd never see Kell Brook looking like that. Everybody saying, "Oh, he's shot," and maybe that fight convinced Khan, to take it against Kell Brook. Obviously, Bo Mack and Crawford probably thought, well, that was easy, but they don't realise how Kell Brook needed to train, how he needed to live to come in optimally, and he was weight drained for that fight. He probably didn't make the weight right. He even looked in great shape. He probably didn't have the right tactics. He didn't have the proper team around him. And that all, that would give Crawford confidence, because they'd have seen, well, this is not the Kell Brook who turns up, fought Golovkin or Errol Spence. His trainer's not there. Look at Crawford. He's stuck with his trainer for a long, long time. Look at the success he's had. So, it is what it is. And, he could have definitely beat Errol Spence, and he could have definitely beat Crawford if he'd have had the optimum camp.
And I think you pretty much summed up his career there. And I think he could be proud of what he's achieved. And like you said, mainly he's financially stable, and he was a world champion. Where does Kell rank amongst all the fighters, the great fighters you've had in this gym? And I'm sure you might have spoken to Naz recently as well. Where does he rank amongst all them?
Well, we had some great nights with Naz. He used to pack out the MEN Arena in Manchester, packed out Sheffield Arena. And Kell said to me, what was the best night for you? Well, the nights when Naz were great. They were great nights. I didn't go to Kevin Kelly. But I did say to Kell afterwards, I've been here when Naz boxed. I've been here when Ricky Hatton boxed in Manchester. And the Khan fight for thrills and spills and crowd and everything else and build up, for me, that was a top fight. It was better than any Naz fight in Manchester Arena, what I saw. Naz was a great fighter to watch. But for me, the best fight I've ever been to in Manchester Arena was Amir Khan against Kell Brook. The introduction, the build-up, the crowd, it was packed to capacity. The ticket prices were going for double and treble. Everybody wanted to be at that fight. The anticipation was fantastic. And for people saying, this fight is way, way past its sell-by date, it might have been, but you would never have known. You've never have known looking at it. It was a good fight for the 6 rounds it lasted. And people say, but would it have been any different, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, in the prime? Yeah, it would have been different. Khan would have gone a little bit longer. But what would have happened, he wouldn't have got stopped on his feet. He would have got stopped flattened. That's the difference. People still say that's a load of rubbish. It's not a load of rubbish. Kell Brook would have always been the better fighter than Amir Khan. That's my opinion. But like I say, back a few years ago, Khan would have lasted a bit longer, but he would have gone out kind of in the same way as he did against Canelo.
So where does Kell rank amongst the fighters in this gym? If you was to say a top 3, where does Kell come into that?
Yeah, he's got to be top. It's between him and Naz. We've had Junior Witter, we had Johnny Nelson, different types of careers. Junior Witter wasn't everybody cup of tea. Neither was Johnny Nelson. But for punching and boxing, you've got to put Naz and Kell up there, because they were similar kind of fight. Similar, exciting. The excitement in this gym was always generated from, generated around Naseem Hamed and Kell Brook. And we've had other fighters, in the meantime, but nobody generated as much interest as those two.
And last one, any major bust-ups with Kell that you could potentially share with us? Because I'm sure you've had some ups and downs over the year. Any major arguments?
This is another thing what people don't realise, that Kell is very, very laid back. We've never had arguments or cross words. It's always been the way it's always worked is, this is what you got to do, Kell. Or what he'll say to me, what am I doing? This is what you're doing. He does it. It's never been a situation where we had to have an argument. It's like he's just gone off and done his own thing. We've never fallen out in that sense. We've never had cross words. And I'm just saying, well, he's almost, I call him the prodigal son, where you tell him, this is what's going to happen, Kell, and you make your mind up. You're a grown man, and he's either stuck in what I've told him, or he's gone off somewhere else. But when he's gone somewhere else, it's never worked out well, has it? Zerafa, terrible fight. Crawford, terrible fight. And it speaks for itself. It's just when you know somebody that well, when you've known them from 10 years old, and what makes them tick. Sometimes you have to let them go and let them do their own thing, and sometimes it can be the ultimate cost. Luckily, when he came back after that terrible loss against Crawford, You know, I think people have wrote Kell off, but you know what a performance he put in and how he managed to condition himself and drag himself back and motivate himself for that fight with Khan. You know, you got to take your hat off to him. So we've never had those fallouts. To be honest, I've never really had crosswords with anybody in the gym. We've just got a difference of opinion. That's what boxers are. They're very, what can I say, selfish, one-track minds. But that's them getting in the ring, getting punched in the head. So there's very, very few people in this gym. It tends to be the lower level fighters coming through where you've had the more arguments, because you just say to them, look, if you want to get from there, where you are now, to where they are, you've got to listen, because that's what they've done. You're not even at the stage you're listening. So there's a lot of kids I've kicked out of the gym early on in their careers because you get motivated to do other stuff. And like I say, it's the swan song for Kell Brook is, you know, fast car ready. It's about boxing's all about. You put yourself in there. As my father would say, you prostitute yourself, you know, and hopefully it pays off at the end.
Talking of that song, am I right in saying it's available online? You can buy it?
Yeah, you get it on Spotify, Apple Music. It's on YouTube. You stick a link in that profile. It's been out a long time, and you know people say to me, "What a great song!" It just kind of sums up boxing and how people are. You know, one day you're the flavour of the month, and next minute you're chucked on the scrap heap. Luckily, you know, Kell Brook's not on the scrap heap. He's finished on the top of the pile. You know, he's gone out in a great way. I looked at something the other day. Another great fighter, Kell Brook. Looked at him when he packed up his career, some great wins, and he was just saying on his social media, you know, blessed to finish on top and unbeaten, because it does matter when you look over your career. Because so many fighters haven't done that. Look at Roy Jones, how he's messed his, you know, got to the end of his career and got himself knocked out, and what a fantastic career he had at the beginning, and then kind of chucks it all away at the end. So, you know, I'm pleased for Kell. Hopefully, you know, he's going to have a good life and it's going to be a happy retirement.
No chance of him coming back, do you think?
Listen, never say never. It's not a decision I'm part of. It's totally down to him. Nobody's pressured him. I've never pressured him. It's a decision he's going to make on himself. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But if he said he's retired, you know, maybe he's just going to be one of them fighters who says retired, like Igler, Kell Brook, you know, Froch. Finish while you're ahead. Quit while you're ahead. It's, you know, it can only get worse from here on.
And who's going to be the next world champion out of this gym?
You never know when, you know, the people walk through that door every day. There's always a chance. You know, we've had some great years, we've had some great fighters come through those doors. So, you know, like I say, when one door closes, another one opens, another fighter steps into the Ingle gym. At the minute, we've got a kid coming through who's just come over from America, Dusty Harrison, an American fighter, and we can do an interview about him. He's something like 23-0, and he's had a bit of time out. He's in the Ingle gym. We're trying to get him back on track for a fighter a promoter in Canada called Lee Baxter, who's going to promote him. So we'll see where his journey is. He's overweight at the minute. We're going to give him the Ingle treatment, get him fit, get the weight off him, working in conjunction with the nutritionist Greg Marriott, who's worked with Kell Brook, Billy Joe Saunders, all the top fighters. So we'll see where his journey is. You know, that might be an interesting one. American fighter, very good from what I've seen. So hopefully we can get him back on to winning ways.
Dom, thank you so much for your time, and unless you've got anything else to add, I'm going to leave it there.
That's it, mate. Over out.